record it for posterity. But we are happy to have you as the guest for the September book club. We enjoyed reading your book. Most of the folks here were part of that club. We got together once a week to discuss hot topics, and they stayed on the topic of the book and roved all over the place, but a lot of great stories from folks on how they were applying it in their worlds and questions they had about how to apply it in their world.
Sure.
We're excited to have you today.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. If it's all right, I could do a brief introduction for you.
Do you want me to do my own? Do you want to do it for me?
If you would like to do it, go right ahead. I tried to put it together, but you know your life better than I do.
Oh, ad nauseum. Yeah. So I'm Trish. I founded a services business called the Bridge Group back in 1998. We work in the B2B tech space. We are focused on the virtual selling space, SDRs, ISRs, AMs, CSMs. We help people improve their go-to-market strategy or their tactical implementation thereof. Also the author of that, as we all know, which is why we're here. And we also have published another book. If anyone's using Salesforce Lightning Experience, I highly recommend this book. It's called Lightning Sales Ops. It's written by a brilliant young man called Matt Bertuzzi. So there you go.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's us. Yeah.
Keep it in the family.
Trying. Believe in nepotism. I'm Italian.
Nice, nice. So over 20 years, you founded your company. What was the inspiration for you to jump into consulting? You'd worked in warehouse management software, you'd worked in telemarketing, and then you're like, I'm going to do my own thing.
So back in the late 90s, I was the VP of sales and an equity partner at an outsourcing company called Telesales Inc. And we were the telesales outsourced organization for different tech companies. And when I say that, I mean mostly quota carrying. That's when people would outsource that function. And I'd work with all these CROs, and they're like, you know why? We should just hire some young, hungry reps and have them pound the phones. And then they would think like revenue would shoot out their ass, right? I'm like, you people so don't get this. I kept saying to them, this is as strategic as building a channel. This is as strategic as building a field organization. And they were, some would listen, some wouldn't. So finally I said, you know what? I'm going to launch a services business because I wanted a lifestyle business. Yeah, that didn't last long. But I'm like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? I'll go get a job. So that was 1998.
Got it. And we're 405 companies later now, according to your website.
I haven't counted lately, but sure. Whatever that says.
But six or so years ago, you got either pushed into or jumped into the book authorship column.
16.
Yeah. So how did that manifest?
So I did not want to write a book. I am part of a group called Women Sales Pros. It's a group of women entrepreneurs who own their own businesses in sales consulting, sales training, that type of thing. And Jill Conrath, does everybody here know Jill Conrath? Mm-hmm. Fabulous sales author, has written 6 books, all bestsellers. And she's part of that group. And she kept saying to me, you need to write a book. And I'd be like, no. She's like, you need to write a book. I'm like, no. You need to write a book. No. And I'm like, why do I need to write a book? She goes, you own the space, go own the space. When she said that, it dawned on me because I had great brand and great clients and I built a great business. But did I own the space? It took me a year of being a raving lunatic, but I wrote the Sales Development Playbook. Our goal was to sell 500 copies because I thought, friends, family, whatever. Mm-hmm. My team bought me this beautiful award that's over there when we sold 5,000 copies because we're like, oh, look at us. And now I think we've sold over 30,000. So it worked out great.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. And last question before we open it up to the reason for being here is to get you together with the crew. It's been 5 years. I think when we talked about teeing this up, you're like, I'm gonna have to go find my book again and read it.
And I did.
But a lot's happened, not just including the last 6 months with our global pandemic fund.
Yeah.
Just some thoughts on revisiting it and where we're at today, and what you see, and we can get
Yeah.
there.
I think I would say if you look at the book is built on pillars, right? Strategy, specialization, recruiting, retention, execution, and leadership. Lots of that hasn't changed, right? Because foundationally, best practices have remained consistent. Mm-hmm. What has changed is how we engage with our buyers, the methods we use, the strategies we use, the technologies we use, all that has evolved, especially post-COVID. But the rest of it, I still firmly believe in those pillars.
Great. And anything tweaking with everybody working from home or not being able to get together in person?
See, I don't think it's weird because I've worked at home for 22 years. So, to me, it's like, why would you go to an office, right? I never understood that to begin with. So I think there's a little bit, it's not for everyone. It's definitely presents challenges, specifically in onboarding and coaching. It also, I think, if it's your first or second job, I think you're denied a really critical aspect of being employed at a company, and that is their culture and the socialization part of it. Like, I feel really bad for people who it's their first or second job out of college and they don't get to experience, all the craziness of working at a startup with, food brought in every 5 minutes and, all the craziness. So I feel bad, but at the same time, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Sure.
And the people that succeed here are going to crush it when things go back to normal, if things go back to normal.
Right. Well, thank you for the lead in. Want to keep this as free formed and as inclusive as possible. So my only asks is to take the preambles down, get to good questions, and just be respectful of the others here to let people get in questions. I think we can have the opportunity to revisit folks multiple times. So don't feel the need to cram all your questions in at once, but bring in your life experiences, bring in your questions on the book, bring in your lead into future consulting work with Trish, wherever it goes.
Heavy on that.
Yeah, let's make this a win-win-win.
Yep.
So who'd like to? I think did Anthony?
Trina had a question in the chat first.
Okay.
One of my questions is, why do you recommend doing SDR bonuses each month rather than quarterly or annual? Immediate gratification, that's a tough job people are doing. And to say that I'm not going to reward you other than once every 3 months or once a year, I think is craziness. I think motivating people through either spiffs, bonuses, whatever your plan is on a monthly basis is a much better way to keep people motivated, retained, competitive. Like, I don't think 3 months out ever. So to me, if you said to me, I'm going to pay you that commission for that deal, like in 3 months, or for that meeting in 3 months, I'd be like, okay, whatever. So it has more to do with motivation, retention, and that type of thing.
Thanks. When you propose this to the groups that you're working with, the leadership, they already have, say, a quarterly or an annual in place. How does that conversation go to then switch that compensation plan? I mean, in your book, you have a lot of different percentages, different templates that would be a good plan.
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm asking this question, the company that I was just downsized from, we had a quarterly plan, which people accepted. And then 2 weeks before Q1 bonus was to be paid out, which would have been the mid-March, or excuse me, mid-April, the company switched in the middle of that to go to an annual. And we saw,
I'm not sure that's legal, just so you know.
Well, there is some work on that, and I'm not going to out the company, but
yeah, that's fine.
it was a really, as a leader, a very challenging conversation for me to have going in the negative direction. So I'm just, and I don't want to eat up a lot of time. So my question is more framed, when you're doing this with companies or the senior leadership, how do you frame, we're going to make this compensation change to a more frequent rather than the company keeping more of the revenue for themselves to invest in other things type deal?
So to be honest with you, I rarely have those conversations. It's an anomaly to hear of someone who pays incentives for anyone in this type of role that is rarely quarterly, never heard of annual, ever, never in 22 years. But if, to sort of diffuse it, if I had to have the conversation and as an employee or as an SDR leader, I would bring my homework to the table. And one of the things you could use would be our research. So if you go to bridgegroupinc.com and you go to our resources page, you can download our SDR metrics and comp report. And it clearly articulates, I think 400 tech companies participate in it. And it clearly articulates what the norm is in a whole variety of different metrics and compensation areas. And I would just bring that as ammunition. And there's a ton of data out there, but I would build a business plan so to sort of diffuse it from being personal and come armed with data.
Thank you. I must say one of the incredible surprises about your book is how many resources that you've built in the chapters as well as the end of the book. So it's one thing to read and really absorb the material, but then to later have those resources to download and, you know, keep in your toolbook of leadership tools of, oh yeah, you know, we could do it this way. Well, what do you mean? And then pull that out. So thank you very much for that.
My pleasure. My pleasure. It's the only book I'm ever going to write, so enjoy it.
And I just posted that link into the chat. The resources are incredible. Check them all out for sure. Nader, you posted a question. Do you want to jump in and ask?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was just curious because I've been an SDR for the past 4 years, and the one thing I kind of sort of understood is it really helps when you do your homework and you come in prepared, but also it helps when you are sort of curious about the prospect and apply that thinking process when you're doing those cold calls. So I was curious to ask Trish, if I can, how do you support organization build that culture of business acumen within the SDR function where they're able to actually understand what they're getting into, be curious enough to ask the right questions and think about the prospect as opposed to, you know, me getting a meeting. And as a result of that, lead with sort of curiosity and in your outreach and have a value-based approach. I'm just curious to know how in your 20, 30 years of experience, you've been able to sort of support that.
First of all, you have to hire for that. And it's hard, right? Hiring is super hard. So you have to hire for curiosity. I would make part of my interview process, like if I'm selling to CFOs, I would try to hire people that had a finance degree or something like that in this role. Like, I don't care how old you are, we all went to college, got a degree in something, we're probably not doing it. Like, no one ever does what they went to school for. So, you know, you want to hire someone who has an affinity to your buyer type. Like if someone has a marketing degree, wouldn't they be great selling to the marketing persona? Or, you know, you get where I'm going. The other thing I think where we fall down quite a bit is in our onboarding process, we go right into the us. Like, this is what we do, and here's our value proposition, and here's what we think, and here's our case studies. Whereas if you do it right, the first part of your onboarding process should be about, okay, here's the market we're in. Make sure they understand the market you're in, whether it's security, infrastructure, whatever the case is. Like, we're an IT company selling into the mid-market. Here's what IT means. Here's what mid-market means. Here's what modern IT and mid-market means. Here's the reason we do what we do. Here's our vision and our mission. Okay, got that. Great. We sell to VP of IT, VP of App Dev, whatever your buyer personas are. Here's what a day in their life looks like. here are their challenges, here's how they're currently addressing those challenges, and here's how we help them address those challenges. Like, you have to, right from the get-go, give your people context so that they are curious about the business that your buyers are in. And then you have to reinforce that. So everyone has book clubs, right? It's become very popular lately to have book clubs. What do we all read books on? Sales and marketing. Well, ask your buyers what they're reading and then go read those books and have book clubs on that. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of culture that you have to build if you want to create curiosity and maintain curiosity.
Love that. And I don't know if I'm allowed to sort of ask another wrong question, but
I think you're going to, so go right ahead.
Just FYI, I'm also sort of part Italian, so I guess that's that gene coming in me. So, but I was just curious as well when it comes to this talk today of personalization, and the at least my personal experience was, I always try to tie in their corporate and business strategy, because I consider every function that you sell to is revenue driven function. So ultimately is how do I tie in the pain points within that function at a corporate business strategy to what they are sort of at an individual level, sort of tying their individual role to that function and that business sort of or corporate risk or strategy or whatever that may be, right? So what's your perception of that, and how have you seen that in terms of outcome?
Okay.
Because it worked for me, but I don't know.
I know,
I can't generalize that.
You like this stuff. You're cerebral. You'll invest the time to do that. 80% of our reps won't, right? So, nor do they have the skills necessarily to translate what they're learning into a conversation with a buyer. Like, it is a very unique skill. And I think I talk about it in the book, but I could be plagiarizing someone else's book. I can't remember. But anyway, so when you're doing pre-call planning, right, there's the 3 C's. You want to go learn something about the company. You want to go learn something about the contact. And then you want to turn that into a conversation you can have with them, right? That's easier said than done, right? That ability to take the company information, contact information, and figure out how to make it a conversation is easier said than done. So for people who aren't like you, who aren't, I won't say they're not willing, but just not at a point in their career yet where they have a comfort level there, I think we have to provide them with that roadmap. And that's why really, really well fleshed out buyer personas are such an amazing critical success factor for SDRs. Do you want to see one? I mean, can I just show stuff?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, hold on, I gotta find it.
And while you're looking, Trish, just one of the great things about RevGenius and this group that we brought together around your book is it's people who are just starting out as SDRs, seasoned SDRs, SDR managers,
yep,
salespeople, heads of sales, marketers. You know, it's the full melange of everybody in revenue, and it's really been interesting to see the back and forth from everybody at different points in the organization.
Yep. All right. You need to give me ability to share.
You would ask me to do something, wouldn't you?
It's right on share screen. You just hit multiple.
Boom. Okay. Share screen. Okay.
All right. Now, what did I do? Okay. Not to bore you. So tell me if I am boring, and I will not take offense. But like if you guys are using Outreach or SalesLoft or whatever you're using, we write sequences for our clients or cadences for our clients. But the foundation of what we write is the buyer persona. So when you think about a buyer persona isn't one title. It could be multiple titles, people that share challenges and value statements that address those challenges, right? So if I was coaching my new SDR team and I was building my buyer persona, I would identify the 4 key challenges, because that's plenty. 4 is more than enough for each buyer persona. Then, and you can't do this on your own, you need a cross-functional task within your company to help you do this. But because status quo has become all of our biggest competitors, like that's who we compete with now, is doing nothing, right? So what you then provide to your reps is language they can use in their voicemails, emails, and conversations that says, what's the risk of doing nothing, right? You want to arm them with the ability to articulate that. Once you do those 2 things, you can then build out these value statements, okay? And I know this looks overwhelming, and it's not, because you can just break it out and chunk it out, and it's not that hard. Or you can hire us, better yet. But anyway, that you want to write these value statements, right? Because in these value statements, this is what populates your voicemails, your emails, and your conversations. So instead of, not everyone can do the 3 C's, right? The company, contact, and conversation. You give them this library, and it enables them to do that. It enables them to tell the buyer a story. They have everything at their fingertips. It just makes their job so much easier, and it looks more personalized because it's very specific to that buyer persona. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, it makes sense to me.
That's great. I think, Anthony, you had your hand raised?
I did, and I will lower it now. Trish, I was looking into your background, and especially for like Seth, who I know works in the healthcare space, and I'm working in the ERP tech space for finance,
Yep.
but I sell into healthcare and manufacturing.
Yep.
I'm more of a full stack AE. I do have BDRs, but they're stretched thin across the org. As an AE who then does the initial conversation, carries the deal for sometimes up to 6 months, as new personas come in and surprises pop up, what would you say is your best way that, whether you do have a BDR or you're a full stack AE, to plan out and manage that, kind of like what you were doing before with the last doc, but when you have 5 or 6 players and you got a champion, and how would you, from your experience, suggest that we approach that?
I am so sorry, but I don't understand your question.
As somebody who doesn't just do the initial conversation and get the demo set,
Yeah.
but then having to carry, to
Oh.
use the term, like the romance of the demo, the wow factor. I was just on a call breakdown today, and we were at a pricing touch base, and hesitations started coming up, and the AE kind of got flustered. How can an AE kind of use those tools that BDRs use to get that initial meeting, but to eventually carry the ball across the line?
I think we're talking apples and oranges. Like in the book, and I gotta look up on my whys. I know there are 5 of them. I know why listen and why care are the first 2. Okay. Why listen, why care, why change, why you, why now? The BDR is responsible for why listen, why care. The AE is responsible for why change, why you, why now. It's 2 very different things. It's getting to engagement. That's what the BDR is responsible for. And then it's moving the sales process forward. That's what the AE is responsible for. So it's different tactics, different resources, different activities, different metrics. I'm not sure that one fully translates. One's a subset of the other, but I'm not sure it translates up. I didn't deliver any value in that answer, but that's what
No, it's okay. It's just AEs, at least from what I'm seeing, because I came from originally before doing sales leadership and ops, where it was a segmented role. You had a clear swim lane for the BDR, and then you had the AE, and it was defined. But a lot of orgs are kind of merging the 2 together.
Yep.
And as an AE, sometimes I think we can kind of get that ring rust, where we kind of forget the BDR side, but also BDRs don't have they can't easily scale up to be able to do that. So as orgs are moving to kind of that hybrid role, what would be, from your experience, your suggestion when you're dealing with those multi-department, multi-player types of trying to get them interested in at the table?
Still don't get the question. Is it me? Is it me?
I would never say it's you.
Yeah, I still don't get it. Like, here, let me see if I can say it and you tell me if I'm even remotely close. How's that?
Yeah, that's fine.
So you have multiple buyer personas in an opportunity for you to be able to close the deal, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
And the AE tends to stick with whoever they landed on first, their internal champion.
Yes.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you encourage AEs to continue to expand to other decision makers?
I'd say like the way you built out the buyer persona and how to initiate that curiosity and kind of sow that doubt in the initial phone call. Sometimes once people get to the demo, the discovery isn't revisited. And I guess basically what I'm trying to ask is like, do you see the job of the BDR being done at that point, or should they be included to continue to retouch and keep the momentum going rather than, okay, I got the door open for you. Now it's the AE's job to carry the ball.
Oh, okay, I'm with you.
I talk too much and
No,
kind of like
no.
Nadira saying my Sicilian side came out.
No, I warned Jonathan. I'm like, after 4 o'clock, I am shit stupid. I told him that, but this is what he wanted. So here we go. All right. So now I forgot the question. Wait a minute. Give me a second. I think it depends on if you can have, it depends on how many BDRs you have and what you need to accomplish. Let's say you have 10 AEs, 8 of them have empty calendars, right? Well, you can't take your BDRs and have them work deeper into the sales cycle when there's a whole bunch of empty calendars. You got to get pipeline going, fill those introductory meetings. But if you get to the point where everyone has a pipeline, they have qualified opportunities, they just need to go deeper, then absolutely you can use your BDR, not to continue to nurture necessarily the people you have already developed a relationship with, but to bring other people into the fold. It takes a lot more skill to do that than to just set introductory meetings, and it takes a lot more coordination, but it's absolutely something you can do, and it's part of typically what we see as an ABM strategy.
Perfect, because that's such a buzzword, and a lot of people think it's, okay, I'm going to use Sendoso and send gift cards and this, but then, like, as I was hearing on the call, like, we do use the MEDIC method, and I do really like it. It's just sometimes with being so one-sided, and we see like just forward momentum, and so if we lose traction, it's just one of those things where like that's why, like, in the last book club we were talking with Jocko Vendeklush, and he's a big fan of pod structure.
He swear too. Did he swear?
Probably. I don't know.
Couple times.
Did he? But I guess, sorry for the long story short, but like, it sounds like, you know, you may, in your opinion, do you see like pod structure for AEs to be a better strategy than BDRs just setting appointments?
No. I've done research. Pods are no more effective than any other strategy.
Cool.
And I think there's so many negatives to pods. People leave all the time. There's personalities. I don't know. Accountability becomes an issue. Having said that, there is an alternative to pods, and I'm going to start writing about it. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see I started writing about team selling, because I think it's going to make a comeback. So I'm in the process of collecting information on it, and I will start sharing it, because I think that's going to be the next evolution to address the very problem you're talking about.
Great.
But it's not necessarily going to be a BDR. It might be another ISR or AE in a
Perfect.
team selling role.
Thank
So,
you.
Took us a little while. I think we got there. Yeah.
Excellent.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
All right, Jim Evans, Trish, nice to meet you. We just chatted on LinkedIn earlier this week. I implemented what I learned from your book at my last job, with some mistakes along the way, and I think it was just the execution. I didn't have all my ducks in a row before I tried to launch this. Right, with the 400 and plus companies that you've worked with, I'm curious as to what you see as like a common mistake that these companies do once they've launched this format. Are there bad habits they fall back on, or things that they do in their execution that?
God, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So are there commonalities?
Yeah, I think the commonalities are not inspecting what we're executing. So we have great ideas, we throw it into execution mode, and then we don't continue to inspect our work, right? I talked to someone the other day. I'm like, well, how many sequences do you have in play? He's like, 40. Like, what? Like chaos, like just chaos, right? So I think taking a very measured approach and being very introspective to what you do until you feel like you have a well-oiled machine that is repeatable and scalable is the one step we all skip that we need to bring back. And I think now is a good time to bring it back because things are slower. And people are looking to their leadership teams to pivot and come up with new ideas. And I think introspection might be one of those new ideas.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, who else has got a question out there? Feel free to just unmute and.
Like,
Trish?
are you guys individual contributors or leaders?
So I got a question. But to answer yours, I'm an individual contributor, possibly going back to being a BDR. Not sure yet. Very curious though, as far as promotions within, right? I think I've been in 2 separate orgs now where it was more on a instead of having hard metrics determine the micro promotions or any promotions, it's very much more on a case by case basis. I guess I'm kind of curious to know how you landed on having a defined path be the way, or yeah, I guess that would be the best way to phrase that.
I don't think tenure, necessarily means you're better at your job. So I'm not a fan of anything that isn't a very clearly articulated and measurable way to judge someone's performance and their ability to succeed at the next step. So I think in the book we talk about what SalesLoft did. They had a very clearly defined career path that was built on achieving very specific goals. I love that. I love that. It's a contract. There's no guessing. There's no favoritism. And there is so much favoritism when it comes to promotions. It's like crazy, right? So it takes all of that off the table. It's clearly defined. It's a contract. It's something you can share with someone at the hiring table, the recruiting table. I just think performance-based promotions are the way to go.
With your structure, Trish, quick follow-up. Do you see with the companies you work with that it extends the life cycle of an XDR?
Yeah.
The ability to keep them excited about the role longer and in it stretch past that average 18-month time frame and everybody wins?
Nobody gets to 18 months. Who are we kidding? But I think if they could. So here's the thing. If career paths, okay, first of all, career paths shouldn't be in the sales silo. If you think about being an SDR, your first or second job out of college, you landed there from some haphazard way. Someone worked there, you got referred, you got recruited, your uncle, who knows, right? is this what you wanted to be when you grew up? Who knows? So where I think companies fall down is they have this incredibly talented individual, happens to be sitting in sales development at the moment, and the person has no place to go, so they let them leave. Well, how about if we create career pathing throughout the organization? How about if we allow them to spend time in marketing, finance, customer success, product marketing? I don't care. Expose them to all the different silos in your organization. Let them determine what their future is going to look like, and then support them in those efforts. That keeps people with your company. That prevents attrition. So I think that's one thing we can do. And the other thing we can do is create a learning environment. Nobody does that. They have training once a year. Mm-hmm. At what, kickoff? And there is no more kickoff. Right? So I think providing a learning environment is a critical success factor. And teach them things they don't need to know now, but might need to know in the future. How to run a discovery call, how to handle an objection, how to have a pricing conversation and not be uncomfortable with it. Like, you can still role play and do training around all those things, and they might not use them now, but they're going to get super excited about it, because 65% of all BDRs promoted to AEs fail in the role, and it's because we force them to fail, because we don't prepare them to take the selling field.
Great.
So, yeah. Learning is the coin of the realm now. Way more than money. Learning.
Is that true, Aman?
Yeah, no, that's literally a question I was going to ask her about, just retention, because I just had a conversation with our SDR here, and then, hey Trish, so me and my director, she's not here on the call, but we've been picking and pulling a lot of things out of your book and making new strategies since I've joined this company. So like, we'll plan framework. We're actually building something for retention and building career paths for our reps. And same thing, he was like, he's been in his SDR role for a year now. And I feel like more now than ever, and I've only been in tech sales for a year now as well. SDRs are more like, they have that itch to get out after 12 months compared to when I talk to people that have been in sales way back in the day, and they're like, yeah, like I was an SDR for like 3 years and there's nothing wrong with that. And that was pretty much the same conversation I went through, where I was like, you know the basics, but do you know where you want to be and why? I think it goes back to your whys is, people want to say they want to be AEs, but they don't know why. And a lot of companies don't offer the training and the education that you have in the book, and obviously you're talking about right now. So that's something that we're trying to like pick and pull and bring to our organization.
Well, you don't need me. You've identified the problem and the potential solution.
Yeah, well, these book clubs every week have been helpful.
Good.
Yeah.
Hey, Trish. So going back to something you said a moment ago about kind of in an SDR role and having the opportunity to maybe touch different facets of the company. I've never been part of a company where they enable that. I've seen the opposite, or maybe the old school leadership of, you come in as an SDR, either you're going to go to an AE, you're going to leave the company. There is no other path around that. Mm-hmm. So maybe as like an individual contributor, are there any kind of steps or actions that you could take to maybe be able to move into product or marketing, or be able to learn other facets necessarily without saying like, I'm going to leave my current role, but to get some of that experience while staying within it?
So you mean as an individual contributor, what can I do to, if a company doesn't provide me with those opportunities, what can I do to provide them to myself?
Exactly, because I'm saying the past 2 companies I've been a part of, the SDR path was to AE or they were leaving the company. There was no transition to other roles in the company. So if you're a part of an organization where like typically they're not typically giving those opportunities to learn within different departments, are there any steps you could say like as an SDR, like go to your manager and can I join marketing meetings once a week or things like that? You can maybe figure out like, is that a path I would want to move to within my career?
Yep. I think, you can have a direct conversation with your manager. Do you value my talents? And do you see me staying long-term within this organization? Now, bear in mind, if it's someone who's your direct report, the first thing that comes to their mind is, oh crap, now I need to backfill, right? So there's that. But I mean, I think you just have to have an open and honest conversation with them and say, I just want to explore options. I just want to learn. And I'll still make my number. I won't neglect my responsibilities, but I want to explore other options here at whatever the company is. They say no, it is time to go. Pretty much. Yeah. Time to get it out.
Trish, I'm wondering,
Sorry, go ahead,
wondering
Rob.
what you think these days about social. I know in your book originally it was other and maybe somewhat dismissed. Has that changed at all?
It depends. What do you mean by social? So that's the thing. What do we mean? What do you mean by social? Do you mean Instagram, Facebook, Twitter? Do you mean just LinkedIn? Do you mean video? Like, what do you mean by social? I think social is a very, very broad term that I think has been used out of context, held up like a silver bullet. Like, if I hear these two words again, I swear to God, I'm going to scream at the top of my lungs. Personal branding. Oh my God. Like, why don't you just do your job and then worry about your personal branding some other time? But anyway, I think I don't think social and sales development fit like this. I don't. I think LinkedIn is what most of us mean when we talk about social. So I think using LinkedIn as unbelievably strategically as possible is a critical success factor for sales development. Like, if that was one thing I would rewrite in my book, it would be that. I see people who ask for a LinkedIn connection like their second touch. I'm like, what? I don't know you, I don't care about you, and now I don't like you, right? I think you need to earn the right to ask for the LinkedIn connection. And I think people don't view the LinkedIn connection as the gold that it is, right? Okay, someone connects with you on LinkedIn, they see your stuff, you see their stuff. Party bonus. You can send them a voicemail on LinkedIn. It is crystal clear, stands out from the crowd, amazing. Party bonus. You can send a video via LinkedIn delivered right to their LinkedIn inbox, which is cluttery, but not as bad as most. Party bonus, right? But we treat LinkedIn like a throwaway. And I think that's a shame, and that's the part of social that needs to change. As far as Twitter, Facebook, and it depends on your buyers. Are you B2B? Are you B2C? Are your buyers on Instagram? Are your buyers on Facebook? Is there such a thing still as Facebook? I don't know.
Thank you.
I have a love-hate relationship with social. Yeah, other than LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn.
So on the subject of like not giving them freedom in social, how much freedom or when would you give freedom to an SDR, right? As far as like what they could say on a phone call or how they would approach sending an email. Because I see this like balance that we're kind of seeing is like some people say let them do whatever they want and like, I mean, within reason. And then some say like absolutely follow what I said to do and what we've proven is predictable and does work.
Yeah,
So
that's a great question. I think before I give someone freedom, they have to prove that they can execute the machine that I've delivered to them effectively, right? So do this until I know that you can do this well. Then if someone says, you know what, I really feel like I could bring something else to the table. Awesome. Write me a sequence. Write me a cadence. Lay out what the steps are going to be for me. Tell me what you're going to say in the voicemails and emails. Show me the story that you're going to tell that buyer. If they can do that, and it's hard, right? It's really hard to be a great writer and a great speaker. It's really, really hard. But, you know, if they can do that and they give you the raw materials and you can work with them, you're like, you know what? We can A/B test this. You go give it a go. And then it works and you can share it as a best practice. I think that's all super exciting. But before they get there, they have to earn the right to get there.
I like that. That makes sense. And it's kind of like your own internal R&D department, right? Like they're just creating content for you and you get to throw it out. And if they do fail, you can go back to baseline, which you knew was worked, right? That makes sense. I like it. Thank you.
Yep.
Ryan, I think you had a question before and still got it.
Yeah. Yeah, hey Trish. I had a question about structuring a sales team from the leadership perspective. So if you have a startup, for example, like when would you recommend, at what point, if they have a few salespeople and some sort of loose process, when should they be thinking about hiring for a director role?
Well, I don't think you need, until you have 4 full-time people for the director to manage. I don't even know if you need a director then, maybe. I think it depends. It depends on who, like, what is the talent pool in the organization? Like, some companies are product driven. Some companies are sales and marketing driven. So what's the talent pool within the organization? Is there the expertise and the bandwidth and the passion to pay attention to this in the short term? You could, that means you can hold off on hiring later. Or is it totally product driven, bunch of geeks, they don't know, ask from elbow, and you got to bring someone in to help you? I think you have to look at what you have going on in-house and then make that decision.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Days of Thunder. What is that? It's got to be a guy movie.
It's about car racing.
Yeah.
But the reason I just was nodding my head when he was asking that question, because my manager, I was saying, like, we put our calendar link in the signature, nobody ever sees it or clicks it, and the data's showing it. And he's like, do 20 emails my way and do 20 your way and let the data speak. So I'm glad to hear that kind of confirmed by you.
Well, you need a pretty, 20 is not a huge amount. You need a statistically valid sampling too. I think a lot of people knee jerk,
Well, it just, the movie quote fit, but.
There you go. There you go. My bad.
No, you're good.
I only quote rom-coms. Yeah.
The SDR rom-com.
Yeah, seriously, and there could be one too.
So that'd be like what, 50 First Dates my way, 50 First Dates your way? Like,
we gotta be careful. Yep.
Who else has got a question out there?
All right. I'm off to have my glass of wine.
Not quite yet.
Hey, Jonathan, I got a quick question.
Okay, there we go.
Karen,
this is Seth. Can you hear me?
All right, Seth, go ahead.
All right, great. Hey, Trish, this is Seth Schreiber. You alluded to this earlier, I think when you were attempting to answer Anthony's question, and you talked about, what is the best way to branch out from your initial contact. The AE tends to get stuck with that contact, and the best way to kind of bring other potential champions or coaches or into the buying fold. I was hoping that you could elaborate on that a little bit, on what your opinion is to really, earn other people within the process, but more importantly, also not kind of getting on the bad side of your initial contact if they feel like they are the one and with the power in the pull from that perspective.
Okay. So here's a little secret to that. If you're going after an account, like, this works best in a named account strategy. So, the dollars have to be worth it, right? But if you're going after an account, before you do anything else, reach out a couple times to all the buyer personas. That way, when you have your internal champion and they might hear that so-and-so is talking to Bob Smith, you can go, oh yeah, we've been trying to reach Bob for forever. We've just continued down that path. What you don't want to do is ask if you can branch out. You want to assume and get it going before you need to. Like, if I was going after a named account with an AE and I was an SDR, I would say, okay, there's 5 buyer personas, 3 are executives, 2 are mid-level management. I'm going after the mid-level management. You go after the 3 executives. For the mid-level management, I might not be setting a meeting per se. Once again, the dollar size has to be worth this effort, but I'm going to go collect information from them about current state, openness to change, whatever the criteria are. I'm going to deliver it back to you, And then you go use that super, super personalized information to go after those 3 executives. So it's a whole different kind of BDR strategy or SDR strategy. It's not about getting the meeting. It's about getting the information that gets the meeting higher up. But that's something that I think is going to make a comeback, because everybody's talking about going upstream now, because we're having less deals, so we need bigger deals. Well, to go upstream, you need an upstream strategy, and that's going to be one of them.
Nice.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah. Sorry, I had to come in late. I had a sales call, but there we go. I'm like, this has to be the best excuse I can give, right?
Exactly.
but so right now, a challenge that I'm navigating is that my company has built out as a service company, so like an agent, this sales agency, and we've over the last 2 years developed a product or a software application.
Yep.
And so now the pitch is, here's our service. It's great. It's kind of expensive. Here's a software that's not expensive, but it's a software. And it's like, I'm trying to figure out how to, like, what's the quickest and efficient way? Like, I know part of it's just, I need to figure out in the first 5 minutes of the call, which way someone's going to lean. But as soon as you mention that there's this cheap option, people are like, hey, well, tell me about that first, maybe, when really it kind of diverts from everything. So I don't know, any strategies on when your company is diverging into 2 very different playing fields, but you're selling all of it, how to navigate?
Wait, are you selling all of it to the same buyers?
Yeah. So the cool thing is that if someone can't afford one thing, or if they don't need all the bells and whistles, then now we have something for every person in every budget within the specific category, whereas before we only had the full bells and whistles.
Yeah.
So it's been hard trying, I want to be selling the full bells and whistles, of course, and it's not actually worth my time to only be selling the individual software licenses. So I'm trying to figure out how I can make the best use of my time, make everything as high leverage as possible, while still if I'm on the phone with a person, I might as well sell them something. But
whoa. So the full bells and whistles are a service, and the cheap thing is a technology sold to the same buyer.
Yes.
Do you have brand and name recognition in your market?
Not huge. Maybe in the Canadian market, not in the US.
Okay. So I would go in full bells and whistles. That's it. No discussion of the lower ticket item. I would fight hard for that deal. And then if I didn't get it, I would wait. It's just a strategy. I would wait a week and go back and go, you are not going to believe this, but we've come out with this platform. It's fabulous. It'll meet 30% of the, address 30% of the issues we were talking about before. Can we reopen our conversation? Otherwise, you're just getting on the phone, taking a gun and shooting yourself in the foot every time. Especially selling service now, post-COVID, it's a bear. So you can either do it that way, or in your total addressable market, you could say, are you a full stack AE? Do you do your own BDR stuff? Okay. You could say,
yeah, we have BDRs, but I do a bit of both.
Okay. You could say, bigger accounts are going to buy services before smaller accounts, right? That's just how it is post-COVID. So I would say, all right, I'm going to look at my total addressable market, and I'm going to say, these are tier 1 accounts. These are the accounts I'm only going to sell services to. That's it, right? And then if it doesn't work, maybe go back and use it. Hey, you're not going to believe what I just thought of. Strategy. But on the tier 2 accounts, I'm not going to waste my time trying to sell full stack because they're never going to buy it. I'm going to land and expand because I'm going to assume you can upsell, can you?
Oh, yeah.
Well, there you go. What's better than upselling in the days of COVID? Sell in the tier 2 accounts get the platform in there, make sure they're happy with it, and then upsell them. So I would have 2 different strategies, but I wouldn't schmeld them. I think I'm making stuff up here. I don't know enough about your business, but that's what my gut's telling me I would do.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Matthew, what the hell are you laughing at?
That was awesome. I feel like the answer was great, and then that was perfect. Thank you.
Nice. Anybody else have a question, or are we good for today?
I'm here for you, peeps.
Yeah, Trish, we know how to connect with you through LinkedIn. We have your website.
Engage with my content on LinkedIn. Get your name out there. You know, I hate personal branding, but do it. Yeah, and if you really stuck, just call me. I mean, this is the weirdest thing. I make that offer, nobody ever calls me. My cell phone number is in my LinkedIn profile. Nobody calls me.
One of the smartest, friendliest, most practical people who isn't afraid to drop some French language in a conversation to get it done right.
Gong said, did you guys know this?
Yeah.
If you say the F word in a sales cycle with your buyer and they say it too, your close rate increases by like 70%.
Yeah. It was after they say it though, right? Like they have to do it first and then you follow.
Pretty sure it probably works that way, but yeah.
Fucking right. Well, we really appreciate it. Those of us that got to read together and enjoy, and the others that have seen the highlights of the conversation in the group. This was a highlight for us last month. Really appreciate you making the time today.
Oh, my pleasure. I wish you all every success. Have fun. You're selling in crazy times, but this too shall end.
And not only if you need help, but also like to play golf, you know, when we all can get together. Big reason to reach out for Trish to do some consulting work. You can get in 18 as well.
There you go.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining the RevGenius September Book Club Forum with Trish. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.